This is the story of how the tireless efforts of one dedicated individual brought out a town's better nature. Meet David Tomlinson, an unlikely hero. Diminutive and disheveled, with unruly hair and a twinkle in his eyes, David's appearance belies his wisdom and his doggedness. His encyclopedic knowledge of the natural world, combined with his persistence in winning causes, makes him a thorn in the side of certain opposing factions and a champion to supporters of sustainable development.
We're very short of woodland edge on the site. These are storm water ponds.
It all started in 1975 when David and his wife Deirdre arrived in the small, growing town of Aurora, Ontario, from their native England. While continuing his career as a landscape architect, David became involved in a number of environmental landscape projects. He and Aurora proved to be a perfect match, and over the years, he's become one of the key players in Aurora's environmental prosperity. Aurora was once a small village, lying on the outskirts of Toronto, along the province's main north-south transportation route. Today, the town has a population of nearly 50,000. Testament to this growth is the influx of big box stores and mass housing developments. These are common sights among burgeoning bedroom communities in North America, and Aurora's story is a familiar one. But with a sizable portion of the region's 1.6 million acre greenbelt winding through town, many Aurorans recognize the importance of preserving this jewel in Ontario's ecological crown. Combined with a mayor whose passion for sustainable development is set on high, an enthusiastic action group, and a sprightly eco-warrior, and you have the recipe for positive environmental results.
The east-west trail we're trying to get to go across here, the connector from the Oak Ridges
Phyllis Morris is the town's mayor. She's been an advocate of environmental issues for over 20 years, first as a citizen, then as a councillor, and now as mayor. During her early days on council, Morris and a band of eager and determined citizens gave rise to a small committee devoted to environmental activities.
We formed a group called Aurora Citizens Organisation Respecting Nature, ACORN. And ACORN was very successful in bringing together people such as David Tomlinson, and they would meet on a regular basis talking about some of the initiatives that were important to the town of Aurora, the greening strategies, forest woodlots, tree protection, and looking to see what was out there that was happening at the time and what perhaps needed to still be done.
Today, the Environmental Advisory Committee is a 40-member-strong, citizen-led group advising council on matters relating to the protection and enhancement of the environment and a catalyst for local initiatives that promote environmental sustainability. Working groups within the committee focus on climate change, naturalization and wildlife, public awareness, planning and policy, and waste management. David Tomlinson heads up the Wildlife and Naturalization Working Group, and he plans and manages a full lineup of projects. One of the more noteworthy initiatives undertaken by the group is a 2-year study on storm water ponds.
When I joined EAC, it was about the time that the ministry produced a report on stormwater ponds, the wildlife on stormwater ponds in Guelph and Toronto. They did a series of, I forget how many ponds it was, but a series of ponds. And they found out that wildlife used these ponds fairly intensively, even though the ponds were never enhanced for wildlife.
Mandatory for every new housing development in Ontario, stormwater ponds are designed to reduce downstream flooding and erosion by controlling the peak flow and velocity of storm water.
All the ponds. There's a woodlot, and we heard them all in here.
And the report basically comes to the conclusion that you really can't stop wildlife using these ponds. Therefore, the ponds should be designed and enhanced for wildlife, but they should be regularly monitored for pollutants every 5 years, and as soon as the pollutant level reaches a scale that's beyond the ministry's recommendations and guidelines, then the ponds should be cleaned and renovated.
The Stormwater Report isn't the first time David's accomplishments have made the spotlight. In 1983, he began to monitor wildlife in attractive town lands slated for development. He recognized that this tract of land was ecologically significant and valuable to the community. When it became clear that the area was the focus of development pressures, he delivered a detailed proposal for securing its sustainability as a gift to the town and its citizens.
David's been the backbone of many initiatives that we've done. Certainly on the wildlife park, he's been there from day one, recognising the sensitivity of that area. He's been appointed as someone that we've relied on as a town council to work with the 2C area, which is one of the last remaining green spaces in town that will take development. David's been a key player in that, and we have relied on him heavily. He's well respected, he's well known, he's well loved.
When developers submitted their plan for a narrow buffer between the natural area and the housing site, it was a case of David versus Goliath.
David amazingly took on the challenge of approaching town council and the developer, asking for greater buffers than the development industry were willing to give in that area.
The East Aurora Wetland Complex, which is now a provincially important wetland, has been a long and grinding fight with the developers over the last, well, probably 10 years we first started it. And the original developer's proposal was to have a 10-metre buffer zone to protect an provincially important wetland, which eventually, after much fighting, they increased to 35 metres.
David had more vision though. He wanted to make sure it was protected as best he could, and actually launched an appeal at the Ontario Municipal Board.
And we ended up at an OMB hearing again, citizens on one side, no lawyers involved on our side at all, and all highbrow basic lawyers working for the developer.
What was difficult, I think, for any citizen is to take on such a battle, and I admire him for that.
We're doing this bird survey because they said there would be no drastic effect on the wildlife with a 35-metre buffer zone. So for the last 5 years we've been carefully monitoring the bird populations within the valley, in the wetland, to see exactly what the effect of development will have on wildlife.
He's doing his best now to work with the town and the development industry to try and improve on that. But it's David's efforts that raise the profile for that whole area.
Catching up with David to hear his story isn't easy. Although well into his 70s, you're not likely to find him sitting at home in a rocking chair. His day starts at dawn, when he heads off to one of the many stormwater ponds in the area to complete his daily wildlife survey. After that, he'll take on any number of projects, welcoming visitors to his acreage of landscape gardens, drafting plans to increase woodland and wetland habitats, writing proposals to reforest segments of the town floodplain, or tending to the local fragile population of trumpeter swans.
Growth pays for growth, growth no longer pays for growth, smart growth, controlled growth, managed growth, and we've come to sustainable growth. The reality is, we're on one earth, we're only passing through. We're supposed to leave things better than we found them. I think we're seeing a very educated public who care, and in Aurora, it's an exceptional public who really care. I don't know what we do without the likes of David Tomlinson. His value is beyond expressing in dollar value.
David is quick to acknowledge that although he leads many initiatives, achieving success and winning causes is a team effort. If the accomplishments of this hard-working committee are any indication, the environmental future looks bright for this growing town.